This happened almost 7 years ago. I was 35 and a high school history teacher. Each summer, my friends and I would go camping in the Pacific Northwest. I wasn't an expert, but I was comfortable. We would tell stories and laugh around the campfire. I remember thinking how peaceful it was. But that summer turned out to be anything but peaceful. The first night, we set up our tent and gathered around the fire. The night was clear, and the stars shone brightly. We were joking and eating s'mores. I felt happy. But then, around midnight, I heard something. It was a faint rustling in the bushes nearby. I figured it was a deer, so I shrugged it off. Then, I caught a glimpse of a shadow, but just for a moment. The fire flickered and I couldn't see anything clearly. My heart raced. I looked at my friends, but they didn't seem to notice anything. Maybe I was just tired. The next night was different. We sat around the fire again, sharing stories. But something felt off. It was too quiet. I heard soft chanting coming from across the lake. I glanced at my friends, and they looked worried. We decided to check it out. As we walked toward the lake, the whole forest seemed to go silent. Felt like the woods were holding their breath. I shivered. We reached the lake's edge and I saw strange markings carved into the trees. They were shapes I hadn't seen before. It looked both weird and unsettling. Things escalated when one of my friends, Jake, went missing. We had split up while exploring. I thought it was normal in the dark, but when he didn't come back, panic set in. We called out for him, but silence answered. Felt like my heart was pounding in my throat. I thought I saw something move in the distance, but when I looked, nothing was there. I started to doubt my senses. Maybe we were just imagining things, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept listening for any sign of Jake, or any sound at all. I felt cold and uneasy. Just before dawn, the fire flickered again. I thought I saw a figure standing just outside the light, but when I looked closer, there was no one there. I shouted, "Jake?" but got no reply. I turned back to my friends, and they were staring at me. They must have seen something too, but we never talked about it. We packed up our things in silence. I've thought about that summer many times. I think about Jake often. Did something take him? I can't shake the feeling that something is still out there, watching. I never found answers, just questions that haunt me. What happened in those woods? Why did we hear strange sounds? Where did Jake go? I often wonder if we should have stayed a little longer to solve the mystery. But part of me is relieved we didn't. The next summer, as June rolled in, I found myself drawn back to those woods. My friends couldn't make it this time, but I felt it was necessary to confront the past. Maybe I could find out what happened to Jake. I packed my gear and drove to the campsite. The road was familiar, but the memories weighed heavy. When I arrived, the area was just as I remembered. The lake glimmered under the sun. The tall trees whispered in the breeze. But instead of comfort, I felt unease. I set up my tent, half excited and half terrified. That first night, I sat by myself at the fire. The darkness crept in quickly, and soon, I was surrounded by the sounds of the forest. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I kept replaying the events of the previous summer in my mind. Was I imagining things then? What if I saw something I shouldn't have? As the embers faded, I heard it again, the rustling in the bushes. My heart quickened. This time it wasn't a deer. I decided to investigate. Grabbing my flashlight, I stepped cautiously into the shadows. The forest felt different under the beam of my light. Trees loomed above, their branches like dark fingers reaching for the sky. I walked toward the noise. My breath hitched as I moved further into the darkness. Then suddenly I stopped. A chill ran down my spine. There it was, a figure standing just at the edge of the clearing. My stomach knotted. Without thinking, I called out, "Jake?" My voice echoed through the trees, and the figure didn't respond. I blinked and the figure vanished. Panic surged through me. I stumbled back, heart racing, and turned to run. That's when I saw it again, something scurrying behind a tree, moving quickly, always just out of sight. I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. I abandoned my search for the figure and bolted back to my camp. It was as if the forest was alive, a living entity filled with secrets I wasn't meant to uncover. I dove into my tent and zipped it tight. My breath came in rapid bursts, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. I lay awake, listening. Then I heard it again, the soft chanting from across the lake. It was distant but unmistakable. My mind raced. I couldn't connect what I was hearing to anything familiar. The sound was eerie, almost hypnotic. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Just as dawn began to break, I heard a loud crash. Panic exploded inside me. I jumped out of my sleeping bag and unzipped the tent. Squinting into the morning light, I saw something unsettling. Strange markings on the ground near the fire pit. They looked fresh, like someone or something had been there recently. That's when I realized it wasn't just a memory haunting me. It was something real. I had returned to find answers, but now I was more lost than ever. I could feel the weight of the forest pressing down on me. As I stepped into the clearing, I knew I had stirred something, and it wasn't finished with me yet. With my heart still racing from the night's events, I glanced around my campsite. The markings unnerved me. I knelt down to examine them. The grooves were deep and oddly circular, forming a pattern that looked almost intentional. Felt like a warning. I tried to shake off the feeling, but the unease was persistent. I grabbed my phone, hoping for any signal. Nothing. Just like last summer. The isolation didn't help my fear. I decided to explore the area near the water's edge, knowing I had to distract myself. Perhaps I could find a clue about what had happened to Jake, or at least something to explain the strange chanting I heard. As I walked along the shore, the early light danced across the water. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could navigate through the memories and come out the other side more at peace. But then, as I bent down to touch the water, I noticed something bobbing near the surface. I squinted, leaning in closer. It was a piece of fabric, dark and tattered. My pulse quickened again as I reached for it. It was soaked and heavy, but I could make out a familiar pattern. It was the same fabric Jake had worn that last night. Panic surged. My hand trembled as I pulled it from the water, and I felt a sense of dread settle over me. How did it get here? What had happened to him? I staggered back, losing my footing on the slippery rocks. I barely caught myself before I fell into the lake. I needed to think, to process this turn of events. What if this was all connected? The chanting, the figure, the markings, it felt like a puzzle I wasn't equipped to solve. Taking a deep breath, I headed back to my camp to get some supplies. I spotted something glinting in the dirt as I walked. It was another strange marking, but this one was clearer. I bent down to inspect it and was hit with another wave of unease. It looked like a crude symbol, something I swore I had seen before. My mind raced back to the folklore we had read around the campfire last summer. Tales of ancient rituals and things that lurked just beyond our understanding. I backed away, breathing in short, shaky breaths, trying to ignore the creeping sensation that someone or something was watching me. Just then, a sharp snap rang out from the trees behind me, piercing the quiet. I whipped around, my heart pounding. Nothing was there, but the sound echoed in my ears, like a warning. Against my better judgment, I took a step toward the trees, curiosity peaking. That's when I noticed something on the ground. It was a small wooden figure, carved with intricate details I couldn't decipher. I picked it up, the weight of it cold in my palm. I heard the chanting again, louder this time, swirling around me like a storm. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, and the shadows grew longer. I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was shifting around me, hiding secrets I wasn't meant to find. Then it hit me, this wasn't just my past anymore. I was part of something bigger, something dark. And if I didn't leave soon, I might become part of its story too. The shadows lengthened as I gripped the wooden figure tightly in my hand. The chanting had changed pitch, rising higher like a siren's call, pulling me toward the trees. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but curiosity held me in place. I was trapped between the known, a campsite filled with memories, and the unknown lurking just beyond the treeline. A faint rustle drew my attention. My breath caught in my throat as I strained to listen. Was it just the wind? Or was something moving in the underbrush? I stepped back, feeling vulnerable without the comfort of light. An idea struck me. I needed more information. I had to figure out what was going on before it consumed me. I turned and rushed back to my tent, fumbling through my backpack for my flashlight. The darkness was thickening, the world transforming into shadows and whispers. I unearthed it and switched it on, hoping the beam would ward off the encroaching fear. As I stepped back out into the twilight, the world felt different, heavier. I pointed the light toward the trees, searching for anything that might give me answers. When I noticed the markings again this time, they were not only on the ground but also etched into the trunks of trees. They spiraled up like restless spirits, their presence unnerving. A feeling of dread washed over me as I traced a finger over one of the symbols. It was warm, pulsating with a strange energy that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, the chanting rose to a crescendo, filling the air with an urgency I couldn't ignore. I felt a chill creep down my spine. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew it was something more. Then, in the flicker of my flashlight, I saw a figure standing in the distance, cloaked in shadows, head tilted as if observing me. My heart raced again. This felt like a test I wasn't prepared for. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice shaking. "Who's there?" No answer came, just the eerie echo of the chant intertwining with the rustling leaves. As I stepped closer, the figure vanished, absorbed into the darkness, leaving behind a thick silence. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. I had to rationalize what I just saw. Maybe it was a trick of the light, a trick of my mind. But as I turned back to the trees, I realized the symbols were beginning to glow faintly, illuminating the forest floor like a beacon. With my resolve wavering, I shifted my focus between the glowing symbols and the chilling memories of Jake's last night. It all connected: the folklore, the figure, the chanting. I wasn't just wandering into the woods. I had wandered into something ancient, something waiting. Before I could think twice, I pressed the flashlight closer to the engraved symbols, discovering the jagged edges of another hidden figure. This one was larger and carved from stone, looking out from behind a tree. I reached for it, but just as my fingers brushed the surface, the ground beneath me seemed to ripple. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The darkness enveloped me, thicker than before, as if it were a living thing, pressing down on my chest. I scrambled to sit up, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. My flashlight had fallen, but the beam flickered weakly on the ground beside me. The faint glow revealed my surroundings: trees looming like giants around me, their branches twisting in unnatural shapes. Shadows danced, though I couldn't tell if it was a trick of my mind or something more sinister. The chanting had stopped, replaced by an almost deafening silence that felt like a heavy blanket. I could still feel the warmth of the symbol under my fingers, but it was gone now, leaving only a sense of loss. Panic surged within me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. An uneasy certainty settled in. I wasn't alone. I found my flashlight, gripping it with both hands as I stood. It felt like a flimsy barrier against whatever lurked in the darkness. I focused on the ground where the symbols had been, but they were dim now, barely visible. Then, somewhere deeper in the woods, I heard a low rustle again, accompanied by a soft, almost playful giggle. My heart stopped. Against my better judgment, I ventured forward, drawn by the sound. It had a strange allure, like an echo of innocence twisted by the malevolence of the forest. The flashlight beam cut through the shadows, revealing the faint outline of the stone figure once more. It was more prominent now, its carved features sharp and menacing. I stepped closer, and there, at its feet, lay something glimmering in the faint light. Crouching down, I picked it up. It was a small, intricately designed pendant, silver and cool to the touch. I ran my fingers over it, tracing the carvings that mirrored those on the trees. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder now, wrapping around me like fog. Someone was trying to say something, but the words were drowned out by an overwhelming rush of wind. "Get out!" I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I stumbled back, and the pendant slipped from my fingers, clattering to the forest floor. A surge of ground beneath my feet sent me tumbling back, and I barely caught myself against a tree. Just as I regained my footing, I heard it again, the whisper, but this time clearer. Join us. A chill raced through me as the giggles morphed into high-pitched laughter echoing from every direction, almost mocking my terror. The shadows around the trees started to shift, and I could see shapes moving through the darkness. Figures swayed like branches in the wind, their eyes glimmering with what looked like interest or hunger. The urge to flee surged through me, but my legs felt like lead. They were coming closer, the laughter mixing with the symbols glowing ominously in the dark. I had to move. I turned and ran, heart racing, determined to escape whatever fate awaited me in this haunted space. But as I rushed back toward my campsite, I felt the ground tremble beneath me, and the chanting started again, louder and more urgent, as if the forest was awakening from a deep slumber. And then, just as I crossed the threshold of the campsite, I collided with something solid. My breath caught again. I looked up, only to find myself face to face with the shadowy figure I had seen before, now towering over me. Just when I thought I was safe, I realized I was about to uncover the truth. The figure loomed above me, shrouded in darkness. The flashlight flickered, its weak beam barely piercing the shadows around it. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was tall, much taller than any person should be, with limbs that seemed to twist at odd angles. The air crackled with a tension I couldn't shake off. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure remained still, but I could sense a presence, a weight in the air that felt alive. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet my feet glued themselves to the ground. Then it spoke. Its voice was a dissonant chorus, like multiple tones colliding at once. "You have come to play," it said, the words shifting in pitch, echoing like rustling leaves. My heart sank. I didn't want to play. I glanced toward the woods again, trying to gauge how far I was from safety. The shadows had thickened, wrapping around the trees, swallowing the path back. I was trapped. The figure stepped closer, and I could see the gleam of what looked like 1,000 tiny stars in its eyes. "Join us," it repeated. "We have awaited your arrival." Panic coursed through me, and in a moment of desperation, I pointed the flashlight directly at the figure's face. For a brief instant, the light caught its features. Its skin looked like rough bark, a grotesque imitation of human form, and vines entwined around its limbs. I stumbled back, nauseated, the flashlight slipping from my fingers. It hit the ground with a thud, extinguishing the light completely. Suddenly, I was engulfed in darkness. The chanting intensified, echoing around me, mingling with the giggling from deeper within the woods. I turned, struggling to regain my bearing when I felt a cold breeze whip past me, swirling with a force that pushed me to the ground. I braced myself against the forest floor, heart racing. This can't be happening, I thought. A darting shape caught my eye near the trees. Was it one of them? I peered through the darkness, my breath caught in my throat. Figures dashed between the trees, their eyes burning bright, every movement deliberate and predatory. But then, amidst the chaos, a different sound broke through. The unmistakable thud of footsteps, heavy and unyielding, coming toward me. Whoever or whatever that was pursuing me was closing in. I scrambled to my feet, searching for an escape route. But before I could take a single step, something wrapped around my ankle, tight as a vice. I fell forward, struggling against it. Vines just like the ones on the figure. I yanked at them, but they coiled tighter, pulling me back toward the shadows. Desperation surged again. I had to think. I remembered the pendant. It might have some connection to this madness, this sinister game they played. I scrambled to retrieve it from the forest floor, my fingers trembling as I felt around in the blackness. "Where is it?" I muttered, panicking. Then I felt the cool metal against my palm. I grasped it like a lifeline, and as I did, the ground pulsed beneath me. The air became thicker with whispers, as if the forest was responding to my touch. "Join us! echoed again, but this time it sounded less inviting, more insistent. I clutched the pendant tightly, feeling its heat spread through me. Just as the figures closed in, I heard a voice, wavering and delicate, cut through the laughter. "The choice is yours," it said, reverberating around me. The shadows loomed closer, curiosity glimmering in their eyes. I looked down at the pendant, my heart racing. That S when I realized, it wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a key. But a key to what? Would it unlock my freedom or seal my fate? The moment I felt the pendant's heat, the whispers shifted around me. I couldn't tell if they were pleading or warning, but they lashed at my mind like frantic winds. I clasped the pendant tighter, feeling a strange pulse that synced with the rapid thump of my heart. Suddenly, the pressure around my ankle lessened. I glanced down and saw that the vines were retreating. They slithered back into the darkness like snakes disturbed from slumber. But that didn't mean I was safe. The figures stood at the edge of the light, watching me with a hunger that sent chills coursing through me. "Run!" a voice shouted from somewhere within the trees. I couldn't see who spoke, but the urgency fueled my instincts. I turned and bolted in the opposite direction, the pendant clutched tightly in my fist. I stumbled over roots and rocks, praying I'd find a path into the safety of the open fields. But the woods were twisted and distorted, each step feeling like I was plunging deeper into a nightmarish maze. Behind me, those thudding footsteps resumed, and I dared not look back. The moonlight flickered through the branches, creating eerie patterns against the ground. It was disorienting. I finally spotted a gap between two trunks up ahead, a thin, shifting light beckoning me closer. Somehow I knew I had to reach it. As I approached, relief surged. But then the ground trembled. A wall of thorns erupted, forming a barrier before me. They twisted and reached, cutting off my escape. Panic enveloped me. I pressed my back against the sturdy trunk of a massive oak and stared as the figures moved closer, their smiles glistening in the shadows. "Why are you afraid?" one of them called out, its voice smooth as silk yet laced with menace. "You were invited. Don't you want to join us?" I swallowed hard. The choice haunted me. Could the pendant really be my key to safety? Or did it lead to something far worse? With trembling hands, I rose it above my head. All at once, the air shifted, the whispers swelling into a cacophony. "Unlock your potential," a new voice claimed, more compelling and warm. It was as if the pendant itself was awakening. The figures hesitated, stepping back in unison. I could feel their curious eyes staring at the pendant, awakenings of panic replacing their predatory glee. "What are you waiting for?" I heard one whisper, uncertainty creeping into its tone. In that moment I thought of the escape route. With the vines loosening, I darted toward the glimmering light through the gap in the trees, clutching the pendant like a torch. As I reached the edge, a surge of force pushed me forward, and I tumbled out into a clearing. The night air hit me like a blanket, cold and fresh, but I wasn't out of danger yet. Behind me, the figures shrieked in anger, their voices mixed with the rustle of leaves. Yet somehow, I felt empowered, the pendant thrumming in my hand. Then everything shifted. Back in the clearing, a new figure appeared. It emerged from the shadows. This one looked different. It was more human but wore a mask, its eyes shone like embers. The air thickened with tension as I realized what I had stumbled into. A battle of wills, a game far darker than anything I had imagined. I took a step back, heart racing. I had escaped one threat only to find another. "Who are you?" I asked, but all I got in return was a slow, deliberate smile. In that instant, I knew I had to make a choice again, and that choice might just change everything. I stood frozen in the clearing, the pendant glowing faintly in my hand. The masked figure stepped forward, and the warmth I felt from the pendant turned into a burning heat. I could see the glint of its eyes, two smoldering coals staring straight into me. "What a brave little soul," it said, its voice smooth but chilling. "Do you know what you've unleashed?" Uncertainty gripped me, but I forced myself to meet its gaze. "I don't know anything," I retorted, though I could feel the tremor in my voice. "Just let me go." The masked figure tilted its head, as if my plea amused it. Let you go? Oh no, dear girl. That would be too easy. Its voice wrapped around me, entrancing yet menacing. You've awakened something far greater than you realize. Suddenly, the pendant flared with light, and I felt a rush of energy. Memories flooded in visions of ancient forests and swirling storms, of people dancing in shadows and chanting in forgotten tongues. I gasped, overwhelmed by the images, and dropped to my knees. What is this? I yelled, clutching my head. The figure knelt before me, eyes glowing brighter. This is your destiny. You were meant to find the pendant. You were chosen. Chosen for what? I whispered, bewildered. Chosen to be a bridge between worlds. It reached out a hand, and my body responded before my brain could catch up. I took its cold fingers, and a surge of warmth spread through me. I glimpsed more. The figures from the woods weren't just lurking threats. They were warriors, protectors. What were they protecting against? Release what is bound, the masked figure commanded softly. You hold the power to change everything. I drew back, the thoughts swirling in my head. If I held such power, why did it terrify me? What if I don't want this? I asked, unsure if I wanted to fight or flee. But do you not feel it? The figure's smile widened, revealing sharp, glistening teeth. The allure of a secret. The thrill of embracing your true self. You cannot deny it. I closed my eyes, breathing hard. The world was pulling at me. I could sense the rustling in the bushes behind, the whispers growing stronger. They were calling, begging, urging me to remember. As I fought through the fog, I heard them. Help us, they pleaded. Unlock the gate. Before I could think again, the masked figure's voice sliced through. Choose where your loyalty lies, with the whispers or with us. I opened my eyes wide. It wasn't just a choice between safety and danger. It was a decision that could change everything, for me and for them. The pendant felt heavy in my palm, an anchor and a key all at once. Remember, the figure urged as the ground trembled beneath us. I swallowed hard, torn between two worlds. Before I could decide, a dark figure appeared behind the masked one. It was one of the figures from the woods. Its eyes locked onto mine, a look of desperation on its face. Don't listen to them, it screamed. They will betray you. Panic washed over me as the urgency to choose tightened in my chest. All at once, I realized something. I wasn't just a player in this game. I was the prize. Who would I trust? And was I too late to make a choice? The whispers grew louder, drowning out all reason. My heart raced as I glanced between the masked figure and the desperate one from the woods. The shadows swirling around us seemed to thrum with energy. The air was thick, buzzing with a tension I could almost taste. Don't trust them, the figure urged again, stepping closer. You have to help us. We're fighting against the darkness they serve. The masked figure's hands clenched tighter, their smile no longer playful. Silence. Wretch, it snarled, a snake-like hiss slipping from behind its teeth. You do not understand the burden she carries. I bit my lip, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down. What burden? I asked, my voice trembling. What darkness? The darkness of our world, the figure from the woods shouted. His voice was raw, desperate. They want to destroy everything you care about. They think you'll be their pawn. But you could save us instead. The pendant pulsed in my hand, and a fierce warmth blossomed in my chest. I could feel its power surging through me, responding to my uncertainty. I wasn't alone, but the fear that gripped me was suffocating. Choose, the masked figure urged, stepping forward. Join me, and you will gain unimaginable strength. Together, we can bring about the change you desire. Stop lying, the woods figure retorted. We simply want to protect our realm. I could feel the energy in the air, building like a storm. Sparks crackled from the pendant, and both beings stared at me, waiting. Then, without warning, the earth beneath my feet heaved. I stumbled back, the sudden movement throwing me off balance. As I fell, the pendant slipped from my grip, tumbling to the ground between us. The world went silent for a heartbeat, and then, everything shattered. A blinding light erupted from the pendant, illuminating the clearing. I shielded my eyes, and for a moment, I lost track of where I was. Distant echoes rang in my ears, like a forgotten song. The shadows recoiled from the light, revealing more figures shifting and forming, their shapes more defined. They were the warriors I had glimpsed in the visions. "Help her!" one of them shouted, a voice familiar yet distant. Before I could react, the masked figure lunged, trying to snatch the pendant. "No!" I cried out, scrambling to get to it first. Desperation clawed at my throat. I had to act. In that instant, I reached out and grabbed the pendant, and the surge of energy exploded within me, a sharp contrast to the cold dread swirling around. The forest crackled with power, urging me to embrace it. "Use it," the woods figure shouted. "Release the bond." I took a deep breath, focused on the pendant, and felt my walls crumbling, allowing the energy to rush through me. The light pulsated, drawing in the shadows that loomed, and I realized I was at the threshold of something immense. But then, with a roar, the masked figure fought back. "Fool! You've sealed your fate." That S when I saw it. The shadows reshaped, turning into a swirling mass, swirling toward me with a ferocity that made my heart race. I had no idea what was coming next, but I felt in my bones that there was no turning back. The light engulfed me, wrapping around like a shield, radiating warmth that contrasted sharply with the chill of the shadows encroaching. I could feel the voices, both the whispers and the commands, melding together, creating a symphony that surged through my veins. It felt like memory and instinct intertwining, urging me to act. With the pendant clutched tightly in my palm, I focused on the swirling shadows. They twisted and writhed, a cacophony of indistinct forms desperate to break free. "You will not take her," the woods figure shouted, stepping closer to fortify my resolve. I could barely hear the masked figure's furious growl over the rising tide of voices. "You're playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Join me, and you will be saved." The pleading tone was undercut by an urgency that felt almost desperate. Yet the warmth of the pendant radiated a truth I couldn't ignore. Perhaps it was a key to something beyond mere survival. Perhaps it was the embodiment of choice. I choose," I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos, the power surging through me amplifying my declaration. With every ounce of strength, I pushed energy from the pendant outward, sending a wave of light cascading through the clearing. The shadows faltered at its touch, recoiling as if seared by the brilliance. I could feel the figures behind me, their power merging with mine, amplifying the brightness that burst forth. "Join together," I cried, not just to them but to everything surrounding me, every tree, every whisper of the forest. There was a sudden rush of movement, and an electric response flickered through the air. The darkness shied away, and shadows began to disintegrate in an ethereal blaze. The masked figure's expression transformed from calculative scheming to pure rage. "No!" it screamed, lunging at the light as if attempting to extinguish it. Mere inches from the brightness, it was met with backlash, a force that sent it reeling. I felt a connection build not only between the pendant and myself but with the very essence of the forest as it responded to my call. It was as if I had become a conduit, channeling something ancient and fierce. And then, the whispers returned, clearer this time, echoing off the tree's words I could finally grasp. "Release us. Restore balance." I understood. It wasn't about joining one side or the other. It was about creating harmony between the worlds. With one decisive motion, I raised the pendant higher, focusing on integrating the energy within me. "I choose balance." In that instant, two worlds clashed violently. The masked figure screamed, its shadowy form fracturing, splintering into wisps that spiraled, and the forest roared back, no longer passive but alive in its fury. The shadows began to dissipate, but not without a final thunderous protest. And then silence. A profound stillness swept through the clearing, leaving only the soft hum of life resettling. I blinked, dazed, but as I took in my surroundings, I saw remnants of both realms existed in harmony. Light flickered, illuminating both the stone figure and the gentle forms watching me with cautious respect. The wood's figure stood beside me, its features softer now, marked with gratitude. "You have done what few were brave enough to attempt," it said, eyes shimmering. "What happens now?" I breathed, looking across the space that had been fraught with tension just moments before. "The balance returns. We will protect this realm, and the shadows will no longer push against the light," it responded, voice imbued with hope. As the figures began to merge back into the forest, I felt an ache of unresolved questions linger. Was Jake truly lost, or had he escaped into a different existence here? What would become of the unfulfilled shadows that still awaited transformation? Suddenly, a faint rustle caught my attention. I turned to spot something woven into the underbrush, a scrap of fabric, dark and tattered. It was unmistakably Jake's. I froze, holding my breath, a thousand thoughts flashing through my mind. The connection, the strange games of fate, all of it had not gone unanswered. But as I reached for the fragment, the forest whispered back, the lines between realms thick with questions left unanswered. Unable to resist, I pocketed the fabric, a decision leave me with a lasting piece of my journey, a tether to the past and perhaps a path to something yet undiscovered. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, letting the connections swirl around me, a reminder that some mysteries were best left as they are. I stepped away from the clearing, leaving the remnants of the chaos behind, feeling both lighter and heavier with the knowledge I carried. As I made my way back, the forest felt alive in a way I'd never experienced before, filled with stories yet untold and shadows forever intertwined with the light.